to this week's edition of World Today, where we will be discussing and focusing on some distressing news coming in from Myanmar. Sri Lanka is going to be put to test at the United Nations Human Rights Council. How are they fighting? Pakistan's Premier Imran Khan is in trouble, but losing the Islamabad Senate seat of the PTI. What does that really mean for Pakistan's PTI and the government? We'll explain that and a lot more. Myanmar is bleeding. The military rulers in Myanmar have now started using live ammunition against protesters. Nearly 40 people have lost their lives, but that hasn't stopped the people from thronging the streets of Myanmar, making it one of the hot zones in the world today.
Voices condemning the military rulers of Myanmar gain strength with each passing day.
Myanmar's military must stop murdering and jailing protesters. It is utterly abhorrent that security forces are firing live ammunition against peaceful protesters across the country. We're also appalled at the documented attacks against emergency medical staff and ambulances that are attempting to provide care to those who have been injured.
In Myanmar, thousands of protesters have taken to streets since the military coup on February 1st. But security forces have intensified their response in past few days. They opened live fire into crowds and used tear gas, flashbangs and stun grenades on demonstrators. At least 38 people were killed in the firings that took place across cities and towns in the country.
To look at this so that we case against these perpetrators, generals, for abusing human rights and violating the rights of the people of Myanmar. And we are looking at international criminal courts and other UN mechanisms. It will be a little bit difficult to do it through United Nations Security Council, but we are looking in great length what can be done to bring these generals to accountable.
In Mandalay, thousands of mourners lined the streets and gave defiant three-fingered salutes as the hearse carrying the body of university student Khyal Sin made its way to a cemetery.
They have declared the war against the people of Myanmar. And now the whole world must understand this nature of these dictators, illegal regimes, that they have terrorizing. They are like terrorist group now. They are terrorists within the state. State sponsor terrorists. They are terrorizing the people of Myanmar. It's very, very simple.
Funerals and burials took place on Thursday across Myanmar for some of the victims who lost their lives during the military crackdown. Despite the heavy-handed crackdown by the junta, people continue to turn up in huge numbers to show their support to the anti-coup protesters. While the protests continued, Myanmar's ousted leader Aung San Suu Kyi made a court appearance via video conference on 1st March. She was charged with 2 more offences. International news agency Reuters reported that Myanmar's military rulers attempted to move about $1 billion held at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York days after seizing power on February 1st. It prompted US officials to put a freeze on the funds. US called on China to join hands to help stop the violence in Myanmar.
UNHRC has debated the Human Rights Commissioner's report on the Tamil situation in Sri Lanka. While member states are still negotiating the language of the final resolution, it is going to be put to vote in the last week of the 46th session of the Human Rights Council. Let's see how Sri Lanka would fare. For a resolution to pass, you need a simple majority of yes. In this case, with 47 member states in the Council, the resolution against Sri Lanka would require 24 votes in the affirmative to be adopted if all of them choose either yes or no. If there are abstentions, then the simple majority would be of those who have voted in yes or in no. Currently, there are 13 countries from African states, 8 from the Latin American and Caribbean nations, 13 from the Asia Pacific, 7 from Western Europe and 6 from Eastern Europe. Of the South Asian nations in the grouping, India, Pakistan, Nepal and Bangladesh currently hold membership. Sri Lanka has a lot on its plate when it comes to the United Nations Human Rights Council. I spoke with Sri Lanka's Foreign Secretary Admiral Jayanath Columbage, who told me as to how Sri Lanka is engaging various countries in the Council to ensure that they have the votes to completely ensure that this resolution is rejected. Joining me today is the Foreign Secretary of Sri Lanka, Admiral Jayanath Columbage. Many thanks for joining us here on India Today, sir. What is your expectation from the resolution that would be put to vote with regards to various countries? How do you see, what is your reading of the voting that is to take place?
Well, very briefly, what we really want is for us to focus on our country, for us to develop our country, for us to reconcile our people, because we were engaged in a 30-year-old long conflict. The social fabric of this country was torn apart during that 30 years. So what we need is to reconcile. I think more than anyone else, we want peace, harmony, reconciliation, and to live as one people, one country, because we are battling COVID vigorously. And with the COVID, the economic perils are big. So we want to overcome the economic difficulties that we have as a country. So what we really want is the understanding. What we really want from the international community or the international bodies like the Human Rights Commission is the understanding that Sri Lanka is going through a difficult time. Our priority is not answering these allegations. Our priority is to focus on the country and the people. And please let us do that by bringing resolution if the Human Rights Commission feel that they can bring peace, they can bring reconciliation to this country. It is completely a wrong perception.
How confident are you of the numbers of the 47-member grouping? Where do you think Sri Lanka stands in terms of the voting pattern?
You see, when the High Commissioner's report was tabled on the 25th of February, 21 countries spoke on behalf of Sri Lanka as against to 15 countries who spoke for the High Commissioner's report. But this is not a voting. This is just talking by the countries. But we are really overwhelmed. We are very, overwhelmed by the response that we receive across the board.
On the 21 countries that you say came out in support, I suppose you're also including India's statement, but India was rather critical in terms of the concerns it raised with regards to Tamil aspirations not being fulfilled.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, India did not speak in favor of Sri Lanka at that time. Of course, I would refer to the Indian foreign minister's presentation he made, and he talked about a global village, right? So if it is a global village, we are your immediate neighbor. But then the 21 countries that I mentioned, unfortunately, India, Bangladesh is not included, but we are hopeful that India will be backing Sri Lanka fully right, in time to come. Of course, India has an election coming up in Tamil Nadu, so we can understand the Indian sentiments.
Final question, and the most intriguing one, was the visit that took place recently of the Pakistani Premier. Was the visit aimed at gaining and garnering the OIC support at the United Nations Human Rights Council? A decision of burial of COVID bodies is certainly to assuage the concerns that Prime Minister Imran Khan had raised.
Well, not at all garnering the support or targeting the Organization of Islamic Council, not at all. I mean, we have in Sri Lanka, we have been talking about this Muslim burial issue for a while, and the process was taking place. The committees were appointed, they were doing various studies, and there was a process. And we were all interested in finding a solution because we didn't want to antagonize a particular community in the country, even because of the COVID. Right. So I would say not at all aiming at the Organization of Islamic Council. Of course, now we are happy that we have been able to answer a concern of the OIC. That is right. I mean, as far as we are concerned, it was a bilateral visit of a regional leader coming to the country. So that was it. There was nothing defense spoken, no maritime defense agreement agreed upon, nothing like that. It was basically a bilateral visit. And they were talking about investment, they were talking about trade, they were talking about cricket, right? So these three things that they were discussing, there was nothing contentious, not to upset India. I think Pakistan understand that we don't want to do anything detrimental to India. And we understand that we must not allow anyone to use our soil, our country, to attack India.
Many thanks for joining us here on India Today. While the opposition parties of Pakistan have hailed the defeat of Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf's Abdul Hafiz Sheikh in the Senate election to the Islamabad seat as revenge by democracy, keen political observers and senior journalists are saying that this is not a loss only for Imran Khan, that it is a defeat of the Pakistani establishment. The message being very clear, that the establishment should stop interfering in the domestic politics of Pakistan.
In a close vote on 3rd of March, Pakistan's former Prime Minister Yusuf Raza Gilani of the opposition Pakistan People's Party defeated Abdul Hafiz Sheikh. An economist and politician, Abdul Hafiz Sheikh is the Federal Minister for Pakistan and Revenue Affairs since last December. He was earlier advisor to Prime Minister Khan on finance and revenue from April 2019 to December 2020. Yusuf Raza Gilani won the race with 169 votes, while Sheikh scored 164. This has come as a political blow to Imran Khan, who had personally campaigned for his cabinet colleague. Sheikh is known as an establishment man who had been propped up in powerful positions irrespective of which party is in power in Islamabad. Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan preempted opposition's move of a no-confidence motion and sought a vote of confidence from the country's parliament.
मैं परसों कॉन्फिडेंस मोशन ले रहा हूँ, असेंबली के पास जा रहा हूँ, कॉन्फिडेंस अपनी असेंबली को कह रहा हूँ, आप बताएं सामने, क्योंकि वो तो ओपन होगा ना। अब ये आपका डेमोक्रेटिक, मैं अब अपने सारे मेंबर्स को कह रहा हूँ, ये आपका जमहूरी राइट है। आप कह सकते हैं कि जी हम इमरान खान के साथ नहीं है, लेकिन खुफिया तौर पे हाँ जी हम आपके लिए वोट करेंगे, पैसे लेके किसी और को वोट करें, आप अपनी आखिरत तबाह करते हैं।
PTI has accused its own members of cross-voting, leading to Sheikh's defeat. A video purportedly of a sting operation where Ali Haider Gilani is instructing PTI MPs on how to waste their votes has caused ripples around the power circles of Islamabad. PPP leader and former President Asif Ali Zardari debunked the claims of sting operation.
Welcome back to World Today. Before we go any further, let's first take a look at some of the stories from across the world in World at a Glance.
On 2nd March, the United States announced sanctions of Russian officials and more than a dozen businesses for a nearly fatal nerve agent attack upon Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny and his subsequent jailing. 44-year-old Navalny suffered nerve attack in 2020 on board a flight to Moscow. The United States and other EU countries linked this attack to Putin's security services. He was treated in Germany, and on his return to Russia, Navalny was detained. It sparked street protests across Russia, and police arrested thousands of demonstrators. A Paris court on 1st of March found former French President Nicolas Sarkozy guilty of corruption and influence peddling. Sarkozy was given 1 year in prison and a 2-year suspended sentence. The 66-year-old politician, who was president of France from 2007 to 2012, was convicted for having tried to illegally obtain information from a senior magistrate in 2014 about a legal action in which he was involved. The court said Sarkozy will be entitled to request to be detained at home with an electronic bracelet. It was a week of murders in Afghanistan. 3 women journalists were brutally murdered throughout the week in separate attacks. In just the last 6 months, 15 journalists and media workers have been killed in a series of targeted killings. The Islamic State group has claimed responsibility for some of the attacks, but many others have gone unclaimed. The Taliban, however, has denied any involvement in the killings. Pope Francis arrived in Iraq on Friday for a 4-day tour that will focus on the difficulties faced by Iraq's hard-pressed Christian community. This is the first ever papal visit to Iraq.
Bringing the focus back on COVID-19. While the world seems to be a little lax on the issue, there has been an increase in COVID-19 infections again. But there is also speeding up of distribution of the vaccines across the world.
While the world has found vaccines against the coronavirus and vaccination drives have started all over, the number of infections have started soaring again. And countries like the UK, Germany and France have resorted to fresh lockdowns and night curfews. In Brazil, the hospitals are reaching a breaking point.
Ontem o Brasil registrou 1.726 mortes. O pior dia da pandemia em toda a história desde março de 2020. E agora vamos enfrentar as 2 piores semanas da pandemia desde o início do primeiro caso de Covid-19 no Brasil.
So far, only 3.8% of Brazil's population has been vaccinated. And in Spain, despite the vaccination drive, as the country approaches the first anniversary of the deadly virus, there has been no let-up in the death toll.
Esto no ha parado. Ha habido más, ha habido menos, ha habido momentos en el que había más fallecidos, menos fallecidos, pero siempre ha habido mantenimiento de fallecidos. No podemos hablar de olas. ¿Por qué? Porque en ningún momento hemos bajado. Hemos podido tener 2 fallecidos, o 1, o tener 10. Pero no ha habido un momento que se haya dicho hemos estado 30 días sin fallecidos o 25 días sin fallecidos.
But on the other side of the pond, as New York City marked the anniversary of first COVID case, President Biden made a promising announcement on the vaccine front.
We're now on track to have enough vaccine supply for every adult in America by the end of May.
Across the world, the vaccine distribution is picking up pace, and so far, Israel is leading the table as the country has given vaccine doses to 93.5 people out of every 100 Israelis.
We're proud to be delivering this month vaccines from 3 manufacturers.
Many nations in the weaker economic bracket are dependent on the WHO or vaccine manufacturing countries for their vaccination
We're
drives.
also excited by the progress made by the Johnson & Johnson.
The World Health Organization is at the center of the largest simultaneous global vaccine drive, COVAX, in the history of mankind. On 1st March, the first COVAX-delivered vaccines began to be administered in Africa, in Ivory Coast and Ghana. More than 1 million doses of the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine, licensed and manufactured by the Serum Institute of India, were received by the two countries. A total of 11 million doses are expected to have been delivered to African nations this week under the COVAX scheme. The deliveries mark the start of what will be not just the largest, but the most rapid global rollout of vaccines in history. In total, COVAX aims to deliver at least 2 billion doses of COVID-19 vaccines by the end of 2021, including at least 1.3 billion to the 92 economies eligible for support through the COVAX initiative.
That's all in this edition of World Today, but before I go, I'll leave you with the story of a miraculous escape of a baby from the clutches of death in Hanoi. In Vietnam, a toddler escaped and survived a fall from the 12th floor of an apartment building. Video captured by a resident of a nearby building shows the infant, said to be a 3-year-old, clinging onto the balcony of the condo on Sunday. The video shows the toddler struggling to hold on and then falling to the ground below. According to local media, a passing delivery driver had noticed the child hanging onto the balcony and had climbed a bike shed in an attempt to catch her. State television said the girl was rushed to the hospital with a hip injury and other injuries, but said none were life-threatening. On that note, goodbye and take care.
Hi everyone, Preeti Chaudhary here. Hope you like this video. For latest news and analysis, like and subscribe to the India Today YouTube channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated. Thank you for watching.